Support for the Couples Council comes from Mercier Wellness and Consulting. Their purpose is to equip you with the right skills for a happy and healthy relationship. Services available in office or virtual. Schedule your consultation now. For more information, visit mercierwellness.com. Mercier Wellness and Consulting, small steps, big changes.
This podcast is not a substitute for therapy. Please consult a licensed professional for your mental health needs.
Now on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Couples Council. I'm Dr. Jameson Mercier, your host, licensed clinical social worker, sitting alongside my wife, Herdine Mercier, licensed clinical social worker.
Yep.
And we're still trying to figure out how to end season 1.
I know we can't get off the mic.
No.
Dropping wisdom. That's what we do.
We are the type of people who say no, but keep coming back for more. So bear with us while we figure out how to terminate, right? How to step aside.
I know, because the chief, what did you call yourself the last episode? The chief
Wellness Officer.
Chief Wellness Officer. He don't know how to turn off the mic.
No.
I'm a worker.
Yeah, so
I don't know how to
say no.
And I'm not going to say no, so let's do it.
All right. So we're back. We're still here. Not even back, just still here. We haven't left yet. And what's happening now is we have another 4 weeks of episodes for you.
Yay!
Yeah. And the reason for that is because June, as we all know, is Father's Day. I know it's not June, but the month of June. But it should be Father's Month, I think, sometimes.
I agree, baby.
And what we're doing is we're going to highlight some dads in our community. Some dads who are going against the narrative that black and brown fathers are not around. Going against the narrative that black and brown fathers are not engaged fathers. So, in honor of Father's Day, we are going to highlight dads, and we're going to talk about dads. We're going to talk to dads, what their experience has been, what they know now after having been a dad, the lessons learned from their children, just conversations with dads. Because what I've realized, there are lots of conversations that aren't being had, but there are lots of assumptions and stereotypes.
Yeah. And babe, before we go into today's episode, I think it is vital that the platform knows that your research and your heart and your passion and your drive is behind dads.
Oh, yeah. For those of you who've known me for any length of time know that my bread and butter is black fathers, brown fathers, stay-at-home dads. And if ever you want to have that conversation, we can do that. They're not part of the research. They're not being spoken to. The assumption is that they're just absent and either dead or in jail.
You're typically malmannered. For the most part, 99.9% malmannered. But there's just something about talking about dads that rile you up in a passionate way, and your face light up. You just get excited talking about dads. And so that's why Dadfident is such a special brand to you.
Yeah, Dadfident is a movement. It's about highlighting confident dads, building confident dads, just acknowledging fatherhood for all it is, the beautiful aspects of it, the challenges that exist, but the fact that it's here. Okay, it's just highlighting dads. So,
and before we highlight our dad for today, I have to highlight you, because you rock as a dad. You're so present. The way you communicate with the kids, you joke with the kids, you incorporate them in your day. They long for you to come home. They miss you when you're gone, from taking them fishing to organizing their room to folding their clothes. Y'all, that's one thing the wife mentor don't do. is organize, organize, organize. But Dr. J got us all organized up in this house, and,
At least I try.
and everywhere we go, not just the house. When we travel, a minivan is organized. He packs it so well. You're just a present father, and to give my kids that experience, I'm just so honored. You rock.
Thank you, babe.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, for this episode, this first part of this series, we're going to be talking to a dear friend of mine. His name is Mathew Jean. Mathew Jean is a licensed marriage and family therapist and visionary poised to take up the cause of mental health issues in today's society. He currently serves his community through his private practice, Beachstone Counseling, the Go-To Therapist, and Sober Words, an apparel company fighting stigma associated with substance abuse. As a public speaker, he inspires and motivates others to value their family life and embrace their roles in the family system. His life work is to advocate for those who suffer from mental illness and mental health issues by bringing awareness to the local communities of South Florida. Mathew is married to the Dr. Alyssa Jean and is a proud father of 4 amazing girls, Amelia, Lillian, Malin, and Robin, and we'll get to hear a lot more about them in the interview. His passion is in service, his love is for his family, but his joy is his faith. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Mathew Jean. Matt, welcome to the Couples Council. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
No, it's my pleasure, full disclosure, everybody, we've been trying to get Matt on the show for a while, and this brother is busy, and you'll hear why he's so busy in a little bit when we get into this conversation. But I'm honored to have him. I've known him for a while, literally part of the family at this point, and welcome, man. Welcome. And thank you for agreeing to be on as we talk about dads.
Definitely, man. I think you're definitely right. I've said I was supposed to be on for a while, and timing hasn't allowed me to be here. And of course, like you said, we'll get into why, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to finally actually be on the show. So thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So let's jump into it. So it's June, the month of June. We're profiling dads, and Father's Day is coming up. I always get a little, not too salty, but a little salty with all the shine that moms get.
Yeah.
They get a whole 2-3 rows of cards and a whole section.
Yeah, that's true.
And when Father's Day roll around,
Yeah, they changed the bakery section for moms. They changed the flower section, the wine, everything.
And I'm not hating on moms on Mother's Day.
No, of course not, man. Of course not.
No, we're just gonna highlight some dads who are being dadfident. That's right. What we like to call it.
Yeah.
They're present, they're engaged, they're holding it down.
Right.
So you're a dad. How long have you been a dad at this point?
Wow. I've been a dad for 7, almost and a half years. My oldest daughter is 7.
Okay.
And my youngest daughters are 5. They'll be 6 next month.
All right. So your youngest daughters.
Plural.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Meaning what?
Meaning I have multiples. My wife and I had triplets almost 6 years ago, and that's been quite a journey.
Yeah. God bless you, man.
Oh, man. Thank you. I need all of it. Rain on us, please.
Yeah. So you went from having 1 to having 4.
Yep. And they're 15 months apart. All girls, by the way. Let me make sure that's clear.
Yes.
It's Mathew Jean plus 6 females in the household.
Under one roof. Oh yeah. You've got your hands full.
Yeah, I do.
So when you realized you were having multiples that second time around, what was going through your mind at that time?
Wow, what a journey it was, man, because at the time when my wife and I found out that she was pregnant with our second children, we were separated. And so it was a bittersweet emotion for me because we were going through a rough patch in our relationship to the point where I actually left the home.
Mm.
And so finding out that news was, like I said, bittersweet. Like of course, I'm a person that wants to be responsible and be there for my kid, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I didn't act hastily and just say everything is well, and let's make it work. And so one of the things that I did secretly was I said a prayer, knowing that that this was almost an impossible pitch to put out there, but I said a prayer to myself in my heart. I asked God for twins specifically. I said, if this is the relationship I'm supposed to be in, help me out. I need I need some affirmation. I need some confirmation. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I said the prayer in November, and then February we found out we were having. I'm sorry, and in January we found out we were having triplets, and so
Wow.
it was the twins that I prayed for and one.
Plus one.
Plus one, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, man, automatic excitement. It was great. It was great because it was what we needed at that time, but it was also great because I don't think neither of us like going through that process of pregnancy. So,
Well, when you said it was what you guys needed at the time, what do you mean?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was something that allowed us to form like a stronger union, not just as parents, but as in our relationship as well. We were able to open up our communication, create more empathy, build more trust, create more resilience in between us individually and as a couple. All of those things, I think, were definitely cultivated by us becoming parents of multiples under the age of 2.
Wow.
So that was because they're only 15 months apart, and so by the time they were born, my eldest daughter was only, a little bit over a year,
Mm-hmm.
and so it forced us basically to be in a position to where we, we really, I guess, had each other's back, but not just that, but I guess it was almost like we had to press a reset button in our relationship. You thought
Okay.
you started and you thought you had something solid, but you have to work even harder, and so I think it was definitely what we needed.
Okay. Now you said it forced you to force you back together, but it sounds like you are also willing though.
Yeah, so when I say force us back together, I meant like it was a force that was outside of our control, meaning it was something that I asked for, but it was something that solidified us being together as well,
Okay. Okay.
and I think the answer wasn't the solution. The answer was an antidote to create the solution,
Mm.
meaning the answer was you wanted twins, here's triplets, right?
Yeah.
And so that gave us the opportunity to now look at each other and identify some of the things that we didn't see before and grow into those areas that we lacked previously.
Okay.
you know
Okay.
and so this wasn't one of those situations where people say, oh, I stayed for the kids. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
no.
This is where I was headed. I was
Yeah,
going to ask you to tell me about that because
yeah,
so
yeah,
just like a lot of dads do stay for the kids,
right.
a lot of dads have kids and they still bounce,
Yeah, deuces.
you know?
Right. Yeah.
So so not just for the kids, but go ahead. You were saying it wasn't just for the kids.
No, it was not because first of all, I don't know if you of course you were there with your wife when she had just one child, or
Mhm.
going through that pregnancy. Now magnify that, seeing your wife have to carry 3.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that are internal issues were, as it relates to like the individual in the relationship. It wasn't necessarily the relationship with itself, as what the individual was producing. And so
Okay.
in her eyes, I lacked certain areas and qualities that I didn't have. In my eyes, I saw those things as well that were pushing us apart. And so going through that, going through the fire experience of having to carry multiples, and me having to be there to support her as she carried those multiples, because, it wasn't just when the kids got there. I think the grueling started, once we found out she was having triplets. A few, maybe a month and a half later, she was already on bed rest. So
Wow.
put me in a position to where now I had to care for a person that I wasn't necessarily fully in love with.
Wow.
So
Bro,
now,
man.
yeah, so now I'm in a space where now I'm having to tend to her needs, like, almost hand and feet, in some issues where I have to help her in the shower, help her out the shower, help, I was pushing her in a wheelchair, pushing my 1-year-old in a stroller, around the store. So it forced us to be intimate again. And I use that word force again because it put us in a situation where we weren't necessarily looking for. Circumstances brought us there, and it allowed us to naturally fall in love again.
Wow. Wow, man. It's tough enough just working it out with someone without all of those
Yeah,
demands.
yeah.
So being in a situation like that, being a father, being a husband, and then being put or finding yourself in that situation, tell me about what that did emotionally?
Well, and let me go backwards for a second, man, because this is interesting. One of those things growing up in South Florida, I grew up in Miami in a city called Palaka, and one of those things that I was fearful about was fatherhood, and because people, it wasn't well represented, I just have to say that. Yes, my dad was in the house, but he wasn't a good reflection of what a father was supposed to be, in our house.
Okay.
Too many of those shining role models in our area. So fatherhood wasn't something that a lot of the guys were signing up for. We were like, and so I was terrified of fatherhood because of the myths, because of not wanting to be like my dad and so forth. But when I became a father, to be honest with you, I felt like I was robbed. I felt like if I would have known the joys and the what it brought out of me, I think I would have easily signed up for it sooner.
Wow.
And yeah, man, I think it brought out some of the best parts of me, and some of the parts that were already in me were just highlighted even more as a father. Yeah, so Matt's a nice guy, but that nice guy turns into an awesome, loving, caring father. Matt's a caring guy, same thing, it magnifies it. I'm a compassionate guy, I pay attention to detail. All these things are magnified as a father. I felt like I got superpowers,
Nice.
Own
it.
And so, so what it changed for me emotionally was that it just heightened my emotions to be more sensitive, not just to my own needs. Now I'm paying attention, excuse me, to my daughter's needs and making sure all of their needs are met, because at the times they're so young that they can't meet their own needs. And so it just made me into a super dad. I guess that's what I call it, because there wasn't anything that I felt I couldn't do as a father, versus what moms do, except of course with the exception of breastfeed.
Right.
But that's another conversation as well, because I was like, what I'm saying? Whatever you need me to, right, I'm saying, give me that bottle, whatever you I did that as well, but truth be told, I wanted to do everything and more that my wife did for our kids, and it was just finding those opportunities. When I was younger, I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the role models, I didn't have there wasn't like a manual or anything like that. And being a young guy and not being educated about sex, I had unprotected sex, and I did get young lady's pregnant.
Mm.
And it wasn't something that I was like, yay, father. And I was like, nah, I'm not ready for that. Or I don't want to be this type of dad, or I'm afraid that I will be this type of dad. And so for me, I ran from it at a young age, you know. And so when I hear dads of any age that are running from it, I understand it from that perspective, but I also understand it from a perspective of not fully understanding the benefits for the father, and maybe not fully understanding the benefits for the mother,
Yeah.
and also not fully understanding the benefits for the child. And you can keep going, because it's not just for the father, the mother, and the child. It's for the family, it's for the community, it's for our society at large. And then add to that the level of stress that a father has to endure becoming a father. You know, I can't remember the percentage exactly, but there was a research that talks about the number of men that are depressed. A small majority of them are fathers. That's something to consider as well. And then if you have fathers with multiple individuals, that's more stress, that's more depression, you know, that's more things to worry about. And so there are a lot of different factors that we may not fully understand. And I feel like getting educated and when I say educated, I'm not talking about going to school and getting a degree. I'm talking about learning about what the role is, what the obligations are, what the responsibilities are, what the benefits are, and like I said, for yourself, for the mom, for the child, for society, and then stepping into it as if it's like you being drafted by the Chicago Bulls in 1995 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's how big and momentous it is. And so once you understand that, you're like, man, yeah, I'm all for it. But I don't feel like our society does enough to equip men to get them ready for that. I don't feel like, there's enough push, towards making men feel more supported. And this is something that I've been yelling from the mountaintop for a very long time. Not feeling like this is something that like men are actually a part of. And so think about the conversations that are had when a young lady find out that she's pregnant. The term that we use just in regular language is that, wow, you're pregnant. She's pregnant. Such and such is pregnant. We don't say they are pregnant. Referring to the man or the male and the female. We don't say congratulate. We often leave the male outside of the initial. If you want to just make light of it for a second, right? If the conversation goes, we can have sex, but you gonna get pregnant, right?
Yes, sir.
And it's like, so that's wrong already. And so if we have sex, then we're pregnant. And if we're pregnant, then we go throughout this process of pregnancy together. Pregnancy shouldn't be an individual journey. It should be a collective journey with the man and the woman throughout, so that the same empowerment resources and camaraderie that is had between the woman and whoever supporting should be there for that young man as well throughout. I think we should match that with the men to help them feel more empowered going towards something that I feel will be beneficial, not, to everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting because sometimes I feel like men need even more support than women do a lot of times. Guys, a lot of times, at least when I was young, men were not talking about becoming dads, becoming fathers. And so, I mean, my dad died when I was young. When I was 9 when my dad died. But the other fathers that I would see at my church, in my community, wherever, they were not talking about being dads. I don't know if this is something that men themselves just don't talk about. We don't know how to talk about it. I can't tell you if it's a black and brown dad thing. I mean, that's a conversation we can have, but especially within that community,
Right.
There's a whole lot of support that's missing for fathers.
So think about this image right here, right? And I love this image because this definitely speaks about our mindset of parenting, you know, going from, being pregnant to actually birthing that child. When you think about a baby shower, I usually see one big chair up front
Wow.
for the mom to sit in, and the dad is somewhere in the back drinking a soda. Or something. There are some exceptions. I've seen some with both, but for the majority of my youth and adult life, I usually saw one big chair up front, and they
Mhm.
decorate that chair really nice, and and they do it, that way, and it's just reinforcing this, like that sometimes we're not even needed, and we're not even valuable. And you and I had these conversations
Mhm.
about even in the marriage relationship, trying to find ways to be more useful. Like I remember I had to even ask permission sometimes to do certain things. Like,
Yeah.
look, I
Yeah.
can do this. Like, you don't have to stay. I could do this. Just relax. You go take care of this.
Right.
I'm their dad. I got this. Right? And so I definitely understand. That the thought that we do need more support, or we may need more support.
Hmm. So there's the trend, and I mean, I've done, this, I've done some research and we've talked about it. The trend of more black and brown fathers being present and being
Right.
primary caregivers, that trend is not getting as much attention. Rather, what continues to be the narrative is that black and brown dads, minority dads, overwhelmingly tend to be absent.
Right.
you know they're not talking about the dads who are doing what you're doing, who
Right.
are being a role model, being an example, raising the kids. They're talking about the dads who, for whatever reason, have decided that this isn't for me. Maybe they have been pushed out by the women in the community or the women in the family, and they don't want to fight against that.
Man, how much time do you have? How much time do we have? Because there are so many truths out there about why and how this stuff got started. To where the black and brown dads aren't as valuable because they have the government dad that steps in,
Mm,
that kind of forces the narrative of that. If the male is in the picture, then you don't need us, and we won't support you. But if he's not in the picture, then we'll support you, and we'll support you abundantly to where you never have to need him, you know?
wow.
And so now, that has been reinforced to the point where even when they don't need the government assistant, it's almost like I got this on my own. You probably can, and moms do. Shout out to all the single moms that hold it down all the time. That's not what we're saying. You've also, you and I have heard stories of individuals that want to be a part of their children's lives, but um, the narrative have been so deeply ingrained that now the father has become an enemy to the home because the relationship didn't survive. So now the parenting comes into question because
Mhm.
I don't value it as a person I can be in a relationship with. So now I can't value you as a father, and those two aren't mutually exclusive. You
Right,
know,
right, right. It's, you're hitting on something here where a lot of times, and again, not knocking moms, but some women do keep the fathers away just because the relationship
fight.
survive.
Yeah, and that's sad. That's sad. It breaks my heart. I just think about the next generation, and how, the field that we understand how, systems theory and how transgenerational trends continue,
Hmm.
and so having having the dad outside the home perpetuates a stereotype for the men and the young women in the home as well.
Yeah.
Not to say that we'll automatically recreate it, but the correlation goes up,
Oh,
and
for
so
sure.
it's like, so why knowingly that we're destroying the fabric of our homes and our society, why engage in that,
Yeah.
And so it's rough, man. It's
It's
rough.
rough.
I work with both the moms on that aspect and with some of the fathers who are fighting to be a part of their kids' lives. And so I empathize. I wish there was more. There is more that we could do. But I feel like until we have these hard conversations like you and I are having right now, more often in various places, then I don't think the change that we're looking for will happen.
Yeah.
Like
You're right when you talk about having the conversations, because when we read the studies that are being done about present and engaged fathers, it's interesting because they're not researching black and brown dads. They're not talking to them.
right,
Right. Overwhelmingly, the assumption is that they're not around. So it's like, why even bother? And so that idea continues to perpetuate itself.
yeah,
It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, this downward spiral that just continues to grow.
right,
And the dads who are engaged and present, no one's asking them anything.
right, yeah, yeah. We can blow that myth out the water, though, man. We know, and South Florida's pretty big. But I can speak for, my generational cohorts from high school, college, and some friends around that I've met. Some professionals, some are blue collar. But one thing that they do have in common is that they're awesome dads. You
Mhm.
know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
You talk about your triple OG to like your lawyer. All of these guys are awesome dads, and they love being dads. And like I said, I felt like we were robbed because we the truth, the veil wasn't clearly lifted soon enough. And then so I felt like we stepped into it late in the game. But I also feel like the job that we are doing for those fathers that I'm referring to, man, these are great dads, man. I'm talking about guys that I knew from elementary school, middle school, high school. They're doing their thing. I'm talking about you see them, they're active with their kids, they're in their kids' life. And I'm not just talking about the Facebook dads. I ain't talking about the ones
Man.
take a picture every now and then.
And listen, nothing against the Instagram dads, nothing against them, because that's cool too. But there are some unspoken heroes.
Right. Yeah. I'm talking about like, some guys that go to bat for their kids, man, that make sure that whatever it is that their kids need, being there for their kids, just stepping into that role with purpose, and I think with almost a purpose that brings about a pleasure for them. Like you can see the engagement and what it does for them too. So, that's definitely a myth. I can't co-sign the fact that brown and black dads are inactive, man. My boys, my friends, my family, kicking butt. And like I said, it goes beyond like, my sphere of influence. These are things that I've seen, not just in South Florida, but Texas,
Oh, nationwide.
Yeah, man, Cali, Detroit, New York, you guys are doing great, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There are some exceptions. I feel like those are the ones that are usually highlighted primarily. So
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, which is, again, and you said this earlier, which is why conversations like this are much needed, because it's not true that black and brown dads are absent.
right.
And again, statistically speaking, there are more absent non-minority dads. But again, that's a conversation for.
Yeah, we ain't trying to put them out there, man. We ain't
No,
trying
no,
to put
no,
them
no.
out.
So listen, let me ask you this. I know when I learned that I was going to become a dad, first of all, I freaked out. I'm not even going to front.
Okay.
I am not wearing the shirt that says, I woke up like this. No, I freaked out, and because my dad was, I didn't have my dad growing up, so
Yeah.
I didn't have that model.
Right.
But from the time that I knew I was going to be a dad, and from the time that my kids were born, right? So I think almost every night, I sit up after they've gone to bed, after the
Right.
kids are tucked in, my wife
Yeah.
might be asleep. I sit I sit up in my living room, or I'm in the garage, or I'm in the yard, and
Right.
I know the things I think about.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And when I talk to some other fathers,
Uh-huh.
whatever they do, whether they're businessmen, whether they are at home dads, whatever, whether they are shift workers,
Yeah.
they sit up at night thinking. Um,
What y'all
one,
think about it?
bro, listen, when I was gonna ask you what you be thinking about. I know me. Um,
Uh-huh.
I just be thinking about my kids. Like, I be worrying about my kids,
Yeah.
you know? And it's almost scary.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that
Not an exception, man. Don't do that, man.
you don't do that.
No,
Wow.
I don't do that. And I'll tell you why, right? Because it's something that I started for myself, in the relationship. I think I would have to be honest. My wife is the more anxious individual. I've never been anxious about a lot of things. Of course, I do have fears, different anxieties, but for the most part, I'm usually like calm, right? And so I have started to maybe a few years ago, just maybe a few years ago, forecast,
Mm,
uh, and put stuff out there about what my desires are for my life, what my wants are, what my needs are for my life, and putting them out there into the world. And a lot of people that engage with me and knowing that I'm a father of 4 girls, they usually forecast negativity. And so for me, I have to counter that in my mind by not accepting that reality as truth. Of course, I know
okay.
what's out there.
Yeah.
I've lived in some of the worst places. I grew up in Opalaka, and so I know what the
Nothing
world has
against
to offer.
Opalaka. Nothing against Opalaka.
Right, right. Come on, man, Opalaka till I die, right? but but for me, honestly, when they come up to me, this is what they say, and they see me in the store by myself with my girls, with my wife, with the girls. They be like, "Oh man, 4 girls? Ooh, that's gonna be
Yeah,
rough."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? And they're like, "Ooh, you gotta pay for 4 proms? Oh man, I feel for your pocket." Or they be like, "I'm like, first of all, you don't know my pocket, bro, right? You don't
True
know
that.
my
True that.
pocket."
True that.
And then they say, "Oh man, this is men and women." They be like, when they get to be teenagers, ooh, you gonna. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, those are theories, right? Those are theories that are core, and they're not necessarily saying that these are rites of passages. Like individuals have to go through these things, that they're going to be this way, right?
Correct.
I
Correct.
think it's our job as parents to cultivate what our desires are in our kids as early as possible. And so for me, I have to start with the way I think about what their future would be like, how I think about them currently, and create that energy and that pathway towards what my desires are for their lives. And then when they're old enough to decide for themselves, allow them to create that path for themselves. Hopefully that we've set the appropriate foundation for them. So I'm not forecasting or concerned about what their future will be like. Doesn't matter what this world is throwing at them,
Mm,
because I want to build them strong enough to be able to be like, yeah, I see that, but as for, the genes,
right.
we're good,
So they can withstand all
So,
that.
right. And it's not even withstanding, and even like walking towards it, like there are hard times, that happen in life, but learning how to persevere through them in a way that's appropriate, I think is something that, I'm starting to forecast for myself, that like I said, start to forecast for myself, which is something that I'm hoping that they are learning from watching me right now,
Mm,
They're with me on that journey when I became an entrepreneur. They learn about they're learning about, maintaining and keeping a business. I'm teaching them how to market. I'm teaching them how to be, owners and sellers and not consumers,
right.
all these things right now. And, and all of the other foundational truths that we're creating for them allow them, to not be able to, have anxiety about what tomorrow has to bring, because I'm not anxious, and yeah, the world is the world, and there are things that we can't control. The things that we can control, we should try our best to control.
And I agree with that.
I to be honest with you, I sleep sound at night, bro. I sleep sound. I sleep sound. But I also can understand the other side too. But I don't sit up and think, man. I'm good.
No, I'm glad you sleep sound. I just know I think about my kids' future, and
Right.
maybe I don't necessarily. Maybe it sounded worse off than it was when I started.
Right. Maybe it did.
But when I think about their future, and maybe it's more of a meditation thing that I do, but I think about that. I reflect on it,
Okay.
and that exercise, similar to what you do, but it's something that has helped me in my walk as a father.
Okay.
And so I like the forecasting that you talk about. I'm probably gonna have to borrow that. In addition,
go ahead, most definitely, man.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I allow them to join in that forecasting. And so the way they see themselves now, they have to start seeing the potential for them to create that future that they desire later. They have to understand and see the effort that I'm putting in, the things that I'm forecasting for 2 years from now, 5 years from now, being a part of that awareness as early as possible, knowing that they can recreate that same pathways in their heads to walk towards whatever their desired outcomes are, and we're packing their heads with dreams of opportunities that they can control, and not allowing whatever's going on the external to dictate what happens to them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's awesome. What are one or two things that you wish moms or women knew about dads?
Wow. Oh man. I wish that moms, women. You got the reference. I think one of the things that they may know but may not fully accept is that we are very capable, that like we are extremely capable, to care and to be nurturing. I think nurturing was only and in a greater society was only gifted to women, like that terminology was only gifted to women, but that's not true. That's definitely not true. It's a stereotype about what women are and what men are not. And I think that we've gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to being nurturers.
Yeah.
Like being intentional and creating an environment that's nurturing for our kids. And we are very capable of doing that. If allowed, trained, and cultivated, we can actually be great nurturers. And so that's one.
And that one doesn't make you any less of a man. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't take anything away from anybody.
Not at all, man. Not at all. Not at all. I think it makes you more of a man because you're stepping into a purpose that's a part of a man. That doesn't necessarily gets to be spoken of. And I don't want to get into masculinity and toxic masculinity, all that stuff. Go down the rabbit hole of that stuff, but that's definitely a part of it that hasn't been highlighted as much. When you talk about manhood, fatherhood isn't a part of that conversation as much. And so changing that narrative. But the second thing I think that we, that should be known about fathers is that we want to make sure that they are good, Like our goal isn't just to be there for the child, but we want to be there for them as well. And I think sometimes the dynamic gets in the way because it's a hard balance even to just think about, right? So like you want to make sure that the child is doing well,
right?
But you you don't want to negate the mom as well, because the mom is going through changes and experiences that we also have to be sensitive towards, hormonal changes, physical changes, mental changes, and so forth. And so I think that we're also capable of, having dual responsibilities, if that's what a way of looking at it,
Yeah.
you know, making sure the child is okay, but also being sensitive to all of the changes that are occurring in the woman during this time frame as well. So those two things, I feel like we need to talk more about between the sexes.
Man, I couldn't agree more on that. I really couldn't. Um, it's funny, real quick story, and I think I gotta let you go, man. Real quick story. It's
You're
already
good, man.
hard times.
You're good. You're good.
Um, real quick story. I was at a graduation this past weekend, and while I'm sitting at the graduation, my wife and I start chit chatting about our kids, and she says, "Wow, babe, do you realize in like 8 years, Azriel is our Azriel, our oldest, she'll be graduating." And I said, "You know what, babe? That's why." And then I had to stop talking because, bro, the waterworks came on, man. The waterworks came out with a vengeance.
Wow.
Because I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, I'm looking at this graduation, and I'm thinking like, oh
Right.
my God, my baby's leaving me 8 years
Right.
from now. And then I'm thinking about my other kids. I'm just like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, what is wrong with me? What is going on?
Oh man.
Yo, I'm that kind of father, man. And as we're having this conversation, at the time I was like, what's wrong? But I realized, you know what, that's the kind of things that I imagine a lot of fathers experience
Yeah.
internally.
Yeah. Right.
And like we've been having this conversation, we're not, many of us don't ever show that.
Yeah.
We're more likely to walk out the room and,
Right.
choke it down, before that's happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we need more of that. We need more of that expression in our roles as fathers. Our kids need to see that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing, and I think, like you said, that exposure to it, like we expose our kids to way more things that we were not exposed to,
Mm.
And I think a part of that is seeing the emotional spectrum that men go through and women go through,
Right.
and seeing conflict, but also seeing resolution,
Right.
just being a part of that, and it's just a beautiful thing, man. Like I love it. I wouldn't trade it, man. I enjoy fatherhood. I think it, like I said, I think it brings the best out of me,
Mm.
and and I wish, like you said, that we have way more platforms like this where we can bring in more fathers to get their takes on some of these experiences that they have had or have held back or have not had the space to or comfortability to express. So I'm very curious to see how this conversation resonates with other dads out there as well.
Yeah. Well, what we're doing, like we said in the beginning, this month we're highlighting dads, and we want to continue the conversation. We want to spread the word. We want to flip the script that fatherhood is a beautiful thing. And I agree with you. It's actually done a lot for me, being a father. Despite my fears about it in the beginning, I fully recognize that I'd be worse off if I were not a father, because there are some limitations and parameters that being a father, certain restrictions that it puts on my life that have served to enhance my well-being. Certain blessings that have come to me have been a function of me being a father. It doesn't take away, it adds to.
And I think for me it just enhanced purpose. Like I had purpose before, but there's I mean, like there's no greater purpose in cultivating legacy for your children. I'm carving out space and time right now to make sure my legacy will be there for them, and these are hard conversations, that sometimes get me choked up. Like if I go today, my legacy is certified for them. They will still be able to say, for the years that my dad was here, that dude went to bat for us, you know?
Yes.
So those are the things that I feel like, oh man, like it's what wakes me up, you know, and it's what keeps me up. It motivates me to do more. It motivates me to do less. You know, I'm thinking about when I was talking about our hours. Like
Mhm.
I'm intentionally cutting back a day next year. You
Bro, I
know,
hear it, man. I hear it.
you know, just so I can be there for them more. I became an entrepreneur so I can have space for them. It allowed me to get them ready in the morning, you know,
Yes,
go pick
sir.
them up from school, be there with them with their homework, you know. I didn't have that space when I worked for someone else, you know. And I think so all of this is geared towards making sure that I could be the best version of myself for them, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. When you talk about that word legacy, man, that's powerful. That is powerful. So
We
in
need to have a
addition,
part two. We need to have a part two.
bro, yeah, listen, we're gonna have to figure something out. Um,
Yeah,
in addition to being a dad, you like you said,
right.
you're an entrepreneur, you're doing a lot. You're a busy
Yeah.
dude. Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial side, and if our listeners would like to check out some of your work, get in touch with you, how
Yeah.
can they do that?
Well, first of all, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist as well. I own and operate a private practice called Beachstone Counseling here in South Florida, located in Pompano Beach. I specialize in black male issues, but my doors are always open to all other issues as well. I also made room in my office for entertainers and athletes. I do, you know, service all of them, and you know, have visual sessions. I mean, digital sessions, in-home sessions, at the office sessions.
Just
You
all
know,
over the place, man.
all over the place, man. I have plans in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. And to get in contact with Beachstone Counseling, you can go on IG, you can go on Facebook, you can go online. It's very simple. Beachstone Counseling. You press Google, will come up. And then I also have a second business that I started earlier this year. Well, I started a couple of years ago, but fully launched earlier this year, called Sober Words, which is, you know, also thinking about legacy is something that's very, very important to me. Making sure that the stigma that's associated with substance abuse is something that we're fighting constantly, man. Like the numbers and the narrative behind that, of course, you're a clinician, you already know, but
Mm,
it's important that we change the way we view people in general when they're suffering from diseases, because we don't know who and when it will impact the next individual that could potentially lose their lives. You know, I think the statistic was within 2017, 197 people were dying per day of overdose on substance.
wow.
You know,
Wow.
and a part of that is because the stereotype and stigmas that we have of people that are suffering with substance use disorder, you know, and the way we view them, the way we talk about them, the way we picture them in our head, the way they're portrayed in the media. And so I created a business called Sober Words to help fight the stigma associated with substance abuse so that we can have more conversations around uh, um, sobriety and addiction, to make sure that we're talking holistically about it, not just in the form that's creating the stigma and perpetuating it, but creating safe spaces where people can feel like they can talk about it. More people are talking about it, the more people are getting help and feel safe enough to speak up about it and go get help. And so they can find that on IG, Facebook, and there's a website as well. And we sell apparel. And you know, the thing is that there's a conversation in every piece of apparel that you purchase.
Mm.
And so, friendly bear logo, similar to McGruff the Crime Dog, or the Lion for the Dare campaign. Smokey the Bear, whatever. Sober Words, we have a bear too. You know what I'm saying?
Nice, nice.
And so, if you go to the website, you can read all about it. But the goal is to make sure that people are having conversations in their homes, at their workplace, about substance use that allow people to feel safe, you know? And so we're running a campaign coming up. I'm going to do an ad about it called Sober Cities, where we're highlighting various cities of South Florida, where
Okay.
we're going to sober Pompano Beach, you know, and for those who wear the Sober Pompano Beach shirt, take a picture and talk about why sobriety is important to you or how it's impacted you in a positive or negative way. And, so just highlighting the different cities: sober Miami, sober North Miami, sober, Lauderhill, sober Coral Springs, sober Plantation. Basically all the tri-county cities will be up on the website by the end of this week, and so they can go purchase a t-shirt to show support for that campaign. So those are the couple things that I'm doing more. But
Yeah, you're all over the place, man.
yeah,
But that's
yeah,
good though, man. I see the passion. I sense the passion in what you're doing. You're not just busy for the sake of being busy. And so I just gotta say, shout outs to you, man. Listen, I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you squeezing us in. We finally were able to make it happen. And,
yes, sir.
And so, if I don't see you before, I want to wish you a early Happy Father's Day, man.
Oh man, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate that. So, same thing for you, man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was my friend and colleague Mathew Jean. Thank you guys for listening. Continue to check out this series that we have going for the month of June. I want to encourage you to encourage dads. I want to encourage you to say a special prayer for dads. Just acknowledge fathers and some of the work that they do. Again, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for your patience, for your kind words. Having been with us this first season of the podcast, you can continue to keep up with us and what we're doing on Facebook, on Instagram, The Wife Mentor, Dr. Jameson Mercier, and on the website as well, mercierwellness.com. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to review. If you've not already subscribed, you want to go ahead and do that. That way, you'll automatically get the remainder of this series that we're doing. Thank you guys again for joining us. We look forward to having you for the next episode of the Couples Council. Bye now.
Hey everybody, thank you for listening to our mom and dad. If you like them as much as we do, then click subscribe and leave a comment. But now they have to go because it's family time.
So go practice what you heard, and we'll catch you on the next episode.